That's great.
You wouldn't think, Kroger, you think maybe 3 or 4 days. I've gotten flowers from, I mean, I'm not being bad about it, but from Nance and Craft that have lasted a day, and I've had to call them and, have them come back because
Yeah,
anyone that sends you roses from Nance and Craft, it's expensive.
sure.
Number
Absolutely.
one. Number two, for them to poop out in 24 hours is just not acceptable to the
Yeah.
person that sent them.
Well, yes, Kroger really has developed quite a reputation in the flower business because of the flowers for the
Yeah, the
derby
Derby. Yes.
and the oaks as well. So
Yes. I had a friend that used to help make the blanket, but for both the Phillies and for Derby. And those roses are a special kind. And she brought me two or three. She worked in my office, but she took off that week because she made so much more money doing the Derby stuff. And she brought me three roses, and they lasted almost 2 weeks. And I don't know what kind they are, nor do I know, what special thing they've done. But the whoever grows those roses,
yeah,
uh, they're a special thing.
that,
So,
that's neat. Well, they certainly look lovely on TV
oh mercy,
and in person. But when you're in person, there you're so far back from them, you can
that's
hardly
right.
what they are. So
They're almost like wax too, but they're like that big. Every rose is like that big. The bud, they're
yeah,
amazing. They're amazing. Shirley got out of there one year. I guess they bought too many. I don't know, but she brought them to me, and Neil and I both were just stunned at how long they lasted in the bud. They didn't come out.
yeah. Well, I'm sure they obviously know what they're doing. Ferrari's been doing that a long time. They've had that Derby thing for
Probably 25 years. Kingsley Walker used to do them back in the day. We're talking a long time ago. So,
hmm
back way back. And they were so angry when Kroger got the contract because they were local,
yeah,
and they thought they should never be excluded. But apparently, I would guess that Kroger, beat the price because Kroger's so big. And Kingsley Walker only had one store, and that was in Oxmoor.
yeah. Well, the Churchill Downs people have moved on to from
Mm-hmm.
locals a long time ago on a lot of different things. So
Yep, absolutely. But that was just really funny because the lady lived down the street from us. It really dates me, but I was about 40 years ago, I think.
yeah,
Preserved.
yeah,
I know PG won't be able to join us. He had a conflicting event that popped up and let us know yesterday. I just texted Barry and he said he's caught up in another meeting and isn't sure if he'll be able to join. It looks like, Carrie, I think we've got 7 members on this committee and we have 4 here. I think we can move forward, but I'm not
Well,
sure.
so it's a joint committee meeting.
Oh,
Uh,
that's right.
we
Yeah.
have a quorum for the Communications and Planning Committee, but we only have one member present, Ms. Hinko, from the Program and Policy Committee meeting.
Okay.
So, the committee probably we've got the QAP that's on the agenda. Um,
On.
ultimately it's the board that has to approve that. So, we can present it to the committee here and there just won't be a formal recommendation made from the Program and Policy Committee because there isn't a quorum of the committee present.
Gotcha.
And I did not have a chance. I know you sent out that you could see, you could hear the meetings that you had, and I was interested in that one provider, a developer, and I didn't get a chance to listen and hear what his comment was to see if it's represented in the QAP. And I bet basically I'm fine with the QAP because I know it'll go out for comment. And anybody who's interested will be commenting, but we've
Well,
been
the
through
comment period
quite a-
the comment period has ended. I just want that to be clear to everybody.
Oh, okay.
We've had several focus groups, forums, and then we had our formal public hearing, and the comment
that's
period ended last week. Yeah.
Right. But it seemed to bring in all the stuff we were working on through the last year and a half, didn't it? Doesn't it?
Yes.
And Wendy and
Yes.
We feel like, and Terry could, even if you all can't make a motion, she can at least share with you the big changes that we made, because it is radically different than previous years.
It is.
And can I ask one more question? There's the QAP and then there's the instructions. And I was told some of my concerns could be addressed in the instructions, if not in the QAP, because I'm very interested in protecting tenants and having KHC, as it has always been, at the forefront of presenting tenants' rights to the state of Kentucky. So that's a great tradition, and I just want to move it along. And I was told that was a big difference. Am I correct on that?
Yes. So our instructions, Kathy, if you will, are our multifamily guidelines, which we are diving into soon as we get through with our QAP approval process. And the developer that you mentioned, APK Design and Construction, his comment is, regarding the limitation of the number of developments that any new or new applicant or new developer to Kentucky can have. And we have that in place for, anybody that's new to Kentucky or, new to developing. And we have that in place really for everybody's protection.
Right. Sorry. I mean, I read it in the QAP and I didn't really hear what he had to say, but yes. Okay. I read that.
Who is he? I'm sorry, Terry.
APK Design and Construction. His name is Matthew Harrell. He's working with Walbuck Development in Litchfield on a project. The name of the project is Goodacre. So he is a minority business enterprise working with them. And so his comment was pertaining to being limited to only one development at a time until that 609 has been issued. But that's true for anybody that's new.
Right.
So if I'm the sole member of that committee, I'm fine with passing it along to the board. But I don't think I have any power here, but there you go.
Why don't we go ahead and Gail, if you don't mind calling the meeting to order, and we can proceed with the communications and planning committee items. And then, once that's through, we can just kind of present the QAP and Terry can go through her comments just as a sort of practice run for the board. How about?
All right. I'd like to, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please.
I can confirm that we have a quorum of the Communications and Planning Committee, and the press has been notified.
I have something to raise on the agenda. I believe I wrote you all a week ago about House Bill 18, and we operate the voucher program. And I only know Louisville, and I know in Louisville, virtually 100% of the families using Section 8 are covered by fair housing laws. And I was curious because KHC serves a different population, as to whether that was true for KHC and whether in communicating, we should be communicating that.
So Kathy, if you don't mind, can we save that for, there's a section at the end for items that aren't currently on the agenda.
Okay, but I wrote a week ago, so
I actually think it's going to be covered by part of Kendrick's presentation on who we serve with our programs. I think it's going to be touched on.
Okay. I looked at some of those, but didn't tell me how many were families with children, for instance. So Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Kathy. Gail, if I may, I think the second item is consideration for approval of the minutes. And so if you want to, I'll defer to Sam on that, but certainly,
Yes.
yeah,
I don't have the agenda up.
okay.
I can pull it up and share my screen. How about that?
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Give me
sorry.
just a moment here.
I can pull it up on my phone.
No worries. Thanks for doing that.
So like techie. Not.
Can you all see my screen here?
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Can you zoom in a
Okay.
little, Sam? Great.
All right. So the next item is item 2, consideration and approval of the meeting minutes.
Has everyone read those minutes? If everybody? Then I'll call for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second, name, please, so Sam can get your second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll second. I thought I had said a lot.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, the next item on the agenda, John, if you want to take it away.
Thank you very much. So I'll keep my comments brief and defer to Mr. Kendrick Vonderschmidt, who is going to give a second quarter update on our fiscal 24 current fiscal year corporate strategies and business plan accomplishments, as well as address the Q2 update on the allocation plan, go over some demographic information by program. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kendrick for his presentation. I want to make sure to note, these are both informational items only in this committee, as well as in the full board committee. There's no motion required. These are for information purposes only. So Kendrick.
Thank you, John. As John said, my name is Kendrick Vonderschmidt. I'm the Managing Director of Corporate Planning and Accountability. And today I'll be talking about our corporate planning process. I'll be updating you on our progress throughout the fiscal year. We'll be talking about some demographic data pertaining to our programs, and then we'll talk about the awards we've made so far this year. Thank you, Sam. All right. So our corporate planning process, at this point, you can think of how our different committees break down. We present the overarching strategies, the Communications and Planning Committee. We present the allocation plan to the Programs and Policy Committee. And CP&A is also involved in creating the operating budget, which gets presented to the Finance Committee. And all three of those ultimately end up at the board. Other parts of the planning process, at this time of the year, just last month, we start looking at what we've spent and how much revenue we've brought in. KHC performs that and reports that out to the Finance Committee. I think that's happening later this week. Then in the February and March timeframe, KHC begins crafting their overarching strategies and then presents that to the Communication and Planning Committee and eventually the KHC board. We have already begun that process for fiscal year 25. Then in the April timeframe, we begin crafting our allocation plan, which governs how we use and award our program funds throughout the year. That is then approved by the Programs and Policy Committee in May, and eventually the full board in May. All of that cost and revenue analysis we did in January then feeds into a budget document that is created between January and May. We craft that budget and present that to the Finance Committee and then the full board in May. And then at this time of year, February, and again in August, we present our updates on how we have allocated those funds and how we have how we are doing against those goals that we set out, those overarching strategies that we set out for the year. So, to review, our three main overarching strategies for fiscal year 24 were to operate and align existing housing programs to address the Commonwealth's most urgent housing needs. You can think of this as how we're thinking about our programs. We have certain overarching urgent housing needs, which is a housing shortage and responding to disasters, and those are feeding into everything we're doing as a corporation right now. Overarching strategy 2 is to be flexible in responding to financial risk. This one stays generally the same every year, but we're trying to be responsible in how we use funds and respond to all the different challenges as we come out of the pandemic. And 3, sustain and advance core competencies. This is how we think about our internal organization here in KHC, how we govern our HR policy, looking to recruit different individuals, and then maturing as an organization, investing in technology and trying to share data to make informed decisions of the programs. So looking at our key accomplishments through the second quarter, the 12/31 of fiscal year 24, our loan servicing department is proud to say that they are 884 loans per employee. Our single family department has produced $354 million in loan production volume. For benchmarking, last year at this time, we were at $270 million in loan production. So as the overall housing market has a bit recovered from the higher interest rates, we're still seeing that volume. And I think that's a little bit related to the next one, which is our finance department has created a new financing method. Most of you are probably very aware that we went back to the mortgage revenue bond financing method for our single family loans, and that has kind of boosted our ability to provide low income and first time loans to our customers. Our tenant assistance programs, TAP stands for, we have generated $406,000 in revenue just from the inspections that we do on our units. Benchmarking again to last year, at this point, we were only at $281,000 through 2 quarters. So inspections are picking up and we're collecting those fees as expected. Our HCA program, through our homeless assistance programs, have housed more than 4,000 individuals. Our multifamily programs, using the tax-exempt bond program, have already awarded projects creating or preserving 465 units. Looking into our organization, our employee services is proud to note that our minority representation is 16%. Once again, we'll benchmark this later, but the average Kentucky, there's 13% minority rate here in the state. Our technology services department is proud to say that they have a new managing director hired just a few weeks ago, and that they have performed a successful disaster recovery failover. I don't know all of the ins and outs of what a disaster recovery failover is, but it is something that hasn't happened, I believe, a dozen years. And this makes our computer operations much more secure and will keep us up more consistently. Looking to our business logistics department, we completed a major HVAC system. I have a nice shiny new thermostat in my office because of it, and that kind of dovetails in with us having already completed 37.9% of our capital needs assessment that we do every year, which you can think of as major maintenance products that we try to put together during the budget timeframe. I will tell you, the capital needs assessment, and normally it's astounding to see 37% at this time of the fiscal year. We're normally kind of sandbagging towards Q4 to get everything done that we budgeted for the year. Last but not least, my department is happy to say that we have collected 35% of the available admin fees that we project, of the available admin fees that are out there, we've collected already. You'll note that's not 50%. Well, Kendrick, why is that not 50%? Because we have grants that roll in and roll over throughout the time period. Getting to 100% at the end of Q4 is not really what we're tracking and not really the goal here. So 35% is right on track, and we'll see more of that when we talk about the allocation plan.
Can I ask a question about the inspection fees? Is that because of the great program that you got, the award-winning program that you guys instituted?
I don't know enough about how the fees come back to us to know whether us having that great program and having those successful inspections would necessarily lead to a higher fee collection rate. I would
okay, so
imagine
that's not, it's more because cost is so much less or something. Okay, all right. Just wanted to I heard all about that. Wonderful.
Yeah,
program.
and it's what I do think, and what you're right to connect it to, Kathy, is I think that those technology, all the reminders and texts that we put into place with tenants reduced our no-show rate, which has allowed us to do more inspections. And we do some inspections for some other programs that we don't even, we're not housing tenants with our funds, but we do for a fee, we do inspections for the cabinet, for Health and Family Services, for some other nonprofits to make sure units are habitable for foster youth and for folks with severe mental illness.
Thank you, Wendy. All right, so just a quick summary of our timeline as it stands right now. Right now, my department, along with the rest of the corporation, is working to prepare the operating budget, the overarching strategies and the scorecards for next year, and the allocation plan. In May, we will present to this committee and to the Finance Committee we'll present to this committee our overarching strategies and the allocation plan. And then we will present the operating budget to the Finance Committee. And on May 30th, all these documents will be presented to the Board of Directors. All right, now we'll talk about a quick demographic update of who we are serving with our different programs. This first slide is from Q1. And it breaks down all of our different programs, tries to lock in on who they serve, what percentage of AMI, area and median income they serve, and whether they primarily serve homeowners and renters. And the reason that that's important is because when we look at those populations, they're very different. So this shaded blue area here in the middle of the graph for each program is approximately how much of the state is non-white within those classifications. And the orange dots up and down the graph represent who we're serving with our programs. So you will, if I don't want to focus too much on Q1 because we've got great Q2 data, we'll go right on to that. But you'll notice that the data is mostly shaped very similar to one another between the two different graphs, which is just to point out that our data does not bounce around a lot. It's pretty consistent. The one exception to that is these AHTF and home projects on the left side of the graph. Those bounce around a little bit more just because we do just a handful of units each quarter, get data for those. So, and as we get to later quarters, we incorporate those, and those numbers kind of smooth out.
I don't actually have a stance on this, but I was curious: does non-white include Hispanic?
Non-white does not include Hispanic in the way I've calculated it here.
Okay, that was my question. So,
Sam, if we'll go on to the next two slides, it kind of breaks it down a little bit between homeowner and renter, just so it's a little bit easier to see. Our AHTF home repair program is currently serving right at 13%. The home builder program, it's an astonishing 42%. Our home builder, funded with home dollars, is at 13%. And then the single family lending program is at 20%. Finally, new to the chart this quarter is our HOF program, which is at 28%. So once again, referencing blue shaded areas, that's the percentage of non-white Kentuckians within those income bands that are homeowners. So our programs are serving more than you would expect based on your average, if you just picked a Kentuckian at random within those income bands.
It's worth noting for everyone that HOAF is our homeowner assistance program related to pandemic, issues where folks got behind on their mortgage, taxes, insurance, HOA fee, and or utilities. So that program is new and is of course temporary.
Thank you, Wendy.
And you're great on single family lending. You certainly beat out the banks when you look at their approval rate of non-whites. So kudos.
All right, Sam, if you want to go down to the renter programs, a lot of these are our homeless services programs or our rental assistance programs. If we look at our two COC programs, they're basically offshoots of the same program. One that has with a large new grant. We're right in our shaded area, right at 20%. Our emergency solutions grant is at 23%, and our the COVID version of that same grant is at 20%. Our housing choice voucher program, you can see that is right at 23%. Our TBRA program is right at 16%. You will note that is the only program on this chart that is below if you selected that Kentuckian by average. I did finally pull out all of the counties. So this is the percentage of within the 60% AMI band within renters, and now it's within the counties that we primarily serve with the TBRA numbers. So that does indicate that we are slightly underserving non-white populations with the TBRA program. I'm surfacing that. I don't have necessarily a terribly compelling reason why, but that's something that we're going to continue to look at.
It may be because you accept people with higher incomes.
Yeah, so it's important to know that the first four sources, the COC and ESG and the TBRA, all are utilized by our homeless services providers. And I'm guessing that they do target, as Kathy's suspecting, the TBRA to some households who can't be served with the other funds, who might tend to be a little bit a higher percentage of minority households.
Thank you again.
Which I want to be clear, it doesn't mean that they're rolling in the dough. 60% of AMI for some of these counties is still very low income. I'm just saying I see the difference in income spread.
Next, our ERA2 program, which is you can think of as another form of rental assistance that came out of the pandemic era. We're serving 38% non-white population there. And HOPWA, this number is always really high, and it's 62% for through fiscal 24 Q2. That is the demographic update. Next is the allocation plan update.
Hey, Kendrick, if we can pause, if you don't mind going back, Sam. So, Kathy, we thought that, I know we don't have children. We don't track families with children generally across all programs. It might be data that we can get, but it would be a little hard. But we thought this slide in particular might be a little bit what you were after when you were talking about the legislation in question.
And it does answer a little bit, but what I said is that of the families in just the housing choice voucher program, what percent are not a minority, not a female head of household, not a family with children, not a family that's called disabled, and not a family that's called elderly, because I think
it's not going to be very many. It won't. You're right. It won't be very many.
And that's my point. And that's my point. Even in the balance of state, the House bill specifically targets Section 8 users, and Section 8 users are dramatically those covered by fair housing laws. That was my point.
I can expand it, it actually cites federal resources. So actually all of these on here are federal sources of rent assistance that could be subject to that legislation.
Oh, right. And some of those others are Social Security, which are either elderly or disabled, or veterans. That may be where we get those not covered by fair housing. By bringing in those veterans that we can discriminate against. Anyway, that was my point. Sorry, and I think you agree with me that it would be not a lot are not covered by one of those categories. And then ethnicity, which you may not keep track of for a housing choice voucher.
I think we do track Hispanic households.
We do.
Yeah.
Then should we be saying something? We operate a program and there's a House bill that's going to severely affect the people that we serve. That's a discussion. I don't know if some of you, I personally wrote a letter that got published in the Lexington Herald Leader calling out the legislature on this.
The way it's written, what it primarily does is it prohibits a locality from passing a law saying that you cannot discriminate against a tenant because they are using one of these sources of income to pay their rent. Lexington and Louisville are currently, I think, the only municipalities that in Lexington I'm not even sure if it's gone into law, but they just passed it.
They did just pass it, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like 2 days ago or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is our ox that's being gored in this instance. It's the people we serve through the Housing Choice Voucher program and some of these other programs. That I just think somebody should be discussing whether we should inform the committee. Sorry, did I cut myself off? Inform the committee of those statistics.
Thank you, Kathy. Sam, if we want to move on to the allocation plan portion. Stay on the next table if you don't mind. So this table, this first page and its visualization following, this talks about our grant and fee income, the dollars that we've brought in so far this year that are tied to our programs. I'll note a couple of, so I'll direct you to the bottom first. We've collected 42% of what we projected to collect so far this year. It's different than the 35%. 35% is this is all the money that's out there that we can collect with the programs. This is just what we thought we were going to be able to pull in for thus far this year. 42% of what we thought, so we're a little behind. And I can direct you to a couple of different places where that's occurring.
I think it's worth noting, Kendrick, these are just funds, at least that previous table, or funds to KHC, correct? Like
That's
for
correct.
covering our operations, yeah.
Yes, these are funds to KHC that are associated with the program, not the program funds themselves. So if we look at a couple of our COC planning grants up at the top, B and C, those are behind. We don't have as many expenses, therefore we're not collecting as much admin revenue because of those. And you'll see that a couple of different places. That's also line H, where we have ESG Cares, where we have had less expenses than we had planned through the fiscal year. It's the same for programs like HERF and HOF. We've not had nearly as much contract labor as we had planned. Back in May, when we put the budget back together, we expected to have much more contract labor, much more expensive programs than as they started to unfold just a couple months later. If we go, so those are the majority of the drivers of why that number is not 50% or even higher. Is a lot of our admin programs closer to the top of this chart, this table, we don't have the expenses to match to the admin dollar.
A fine point on it, Kendrick, too. Since we don't have the expenses, we don't have the revenue or the expenses. It's a net zero on the corporation, correct?
That's correct, John.
Yeah.
And in some cases, we can then reutilize that unspent admin dollar on programs as well.
And is weatherization LAHEAP a matter of timing or something?
It is a
people
bit of a
want-
matter of timing. We do have some parts of that program that are training based, that we're still getting some training up and running that we expect to happen a little bit more in Q2 and Q3. That being said, and then we thought they were going to happen before that time period. That being said, there's also a portion of this that is associated with our indirect cost rate, which we were not able to put into implementation on our weatherization or LIHEAP programs in fiscal year 24, but we will be able to in fiscal year 25.
I mean, I'm just asking, is there money on the table that isn't going out to people? Because God knows they need help with their.
Well, again, this is KHC's internal revenue related to program administration, right? This is not about money going out. We got a $52 million increase through the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. However, I could spend 2 hours telling you what I do not like about these programs. One is that we are pretty much mandated to use community action agencies, and I don't have any problem with them, but I don't know how that network is supposed to digest $52 million more in funding with a per unit cap that remains at $8,900, or it's $8,009, which is so low. Anyway, I'll stop grousing. It's just a really challenging program to implement and to hit the numbers on.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy. All right, and the bottom line is, I think if you look at the visualization version of this graph, you'll see not all of our bars are quite to where they should be as far as 50%. It's the amount of admin that we've brought in through we would have projected to bring in this year, but we do have some that are sticking out a little bit further, that are kind of bringing up the pack, and that's how we got to 42%. Moving on to our third page that has a table on it. You know what, Sam? We'll skip to the visualization on this one, and I'll kind of give everyone a summary based upon that look. You'll see up at the top, these are our energy programs. That's weatherization and LIHEAP, as we've been talking about. We have made the large investment, or the large awards for weatherization and LIHEAP already this year. Those go out to the community action agencies pretty early in the year, and then are spent throughout the year. You'll note that there is an unawarded bipartisan infrastructure legislation. We have an additional $4.5 million that we've kept around for some special projects that we have not awarded yet in fiscal 24. Moving to the second section, the Housing Contract Administration programs. It's going to be our single-family construction and rehabilitation programs and our homelessness programs. You will see that we have made modest awards with AHTF. We've not made our large round of awards with AHTF funds or home funds. Those will be made very close to the end of the fiscal year. Traditionally, those are our single-family repair and construction projects. We have made a $13.5 million award out of the Rural Housing Trust Fund. That's that orange bar there at the bottom of the HCA section. That money came out lightning fast and is being put to good use. I always like to congratulate HCA on getting everyone in the corporation getting that money out the door so quickly. And then we have made our COC and ESG awards and HOPWA awards for fiscal 24. So on the table, those missing bars there, it's going to be home TBRA, and AHTF. There'll be more to come there. Multifamily is a lot of the same story. Our AHTF, our Rural Housing Trust Fund, our home, our LIHTC, our NHTF, and a large portion of our taxes and bond portfolio projects. They've not been awarded yet, and they will be awarded in Q4. Those projects are very funding round oriented. Other than the taxes and bond program, we really just lock in on the funding rounds, and those come in all at once. Looking down to our single family section, I'll draw your eye to the first the counseling programs funded by our Housing Assistance Fund and our counseling programs funded by HUD. That'll be lines, the first line and the fourth line. Those programs, those funding sources kind of trade off with who we're counseling at any given time. We're either billing against our HUD contract or we're funding it out of our own assistance fund. So that is why you'll see one that's really high and one that's really low generally at this point in the fiscal year. We've awarded $12.9 million in DAP, or Down Payment Assistance Program, so far this fiscal year. And on a goal of $400 million in single family loans, we have already produced $354 million, the same number that we talked about a few minutes ago. Last but not least, our tenant assistance programs. These programs run like a metronome. We're at 52% and 48% on project-based in our housing choice voucher program. These programs very rarely have major changes at any point during the fiscal year. It's 25, 50, 75, 100, based on what we planned. All right, Sam. Our last table here is the same information largely on, yeah, we can go down to the visualization, largely based upon where that funding came from. So we already talked about AHTF and home. We are going to award most of those funds in Q4 really. So those bars will only fill up at the end of the year. The bottom section is our Housing Assistance Fund, which you can think of as an internal fund that we mostly use for DAP, but we also have the option to use it for paying our counseling fees, for our matching funds for our homelessness programs. More of those will be awarded out as we go throughout the fiscal year. We have the option to use it for multifamily loans, and I know that we're reformatting how we're using the housing assistance program. But those, if those awards are going to be made, they'll be made later on in the year. And then we have a larger targets for opportunity round that we're doing this year as well. We have 5 million. We only have a couple 100,000 for that. So that targets of opportunity grant program is going to be a little bit larger than it typically has been. And I believe that is the end of the slide deck for me. Any points of clarification or questions from? All right.
Thanks, Kendrick. Do you want to continue to move forward?
Sure. So at this point, we have the matters that would normally come before the Program and Policy Committee, but as we only have one member present, I think, Terry, you can probably just present to this whole group, and then the committee won't be able to make a formal recommendation to the full board, but at least we can preview these matters with you all prior to the board meeting.
Okay. I know we don't have much time. Sam, do you want me to just kind of hit the highlights of my slide presentation?
However you want to do it.
Okay. So as you all know, we are working through our next QAPs for our 2-year cycle, and just kind of give you just an overview of really some highlights of what we have done to get where we are today. Back in July, we did hire a consultant through an RFP, Mark Shelburne, who is on our call to help answer any of the questions that you all might have today regarding our scoring criteria and our policies for our QAP. As you all have heard Wendy talk numerous of times about getting new units on the ground. Unfortunately, our resources are not getting any larger, so we got to figure out a way to do that. So in order to do that, we have changed the way that we're going to do our distribution of low-income housing tax credits. Sam, if you want to go to probably it's about slide 9, talks about how we're going to allocate those credits. So here we have this is going to be a really key change to how we allocate our loan caps and tax credits. We will have 2 set-asides this year for the next 2 years. We will have an existing supply set-aside, which we will award 10% of our available credits for 2 applications, and our new supply set-aside. This is going to be divided up between an urban and a balance of state. The urban will receive 33% of our allocation, which will consist of Jefferson, Fayette counties, plus the 3 northern Kentucky counties of Boone, Campbell, and Kenton. And then the balance of state will be the remainder of those credits to the other allocations or other counties in the state. So what does that look like in terms of numbers? Our existing supply would receive, and these are an allocation based on our 2024 allocation that we received, which was just a little over 13 million. So existing supply would get about 1.3 million, and our new supply would get the balance of that, which is almost 12 million. And you can see how it is broken out between the urban and the balance of state. Some other changes that we will also be looking at the county limits. We will make no more than 1 existing supply or 1 new supply award per county. For the purposes of this section, we're going to treat the 3 northern counties, Boone, Campbell, and Kenton, as 1 county. Nonprofit adjustment, if necessary, we will adjust the awards to ensure that at least 10% of our credits are awarded to applications with a nonprofit materially participating. This is part of a requirement. This is nothing that we've ever had to worry about. In the last 4 years, we have allocated at least 50%, if not more, of our awards to nonprofits.
So that means Jefferson County is the same as
Lexington, as the same as Boone, Campbell, and Kenton as 1.
per county. So Harlan County?
No. So in the
And maybe I didn't understand. Obviously, I didn't understand.
You're fine. So in the new supply award, in the new supply set aside, we will have counties under the urban selection or urban criteria, and you will have Jefferson competing against Fayette County, and then you will have Jefferson Fayette competing against the 3 counties of Boone, Campbell, and Kenton.
So
they all compete against one another.
So the effect of that, based on the amount allocated, is that each of those 3 areas, Jefferson, Fayette, and then one of the 3 northern Kentucky counties, is pretty much guaranteed a project each of 2 years that are covered by this QAP. I think you're muted, Kathy.
Apologizing, I obviously didn't understand that it wasn't, that you weren't talking about the whole state at that point. Okay, all right.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot different. Also for minority business enterprise adjustment, if necessary, we will ensure that at least 9% new supply award will go to an application for which at least one of the developers is a certified MBE from the Kentucky Finance Cabinet. All right, we will, for the existing supply criteria, there will not be any type of scoring for these applications. However, we will look at these 3 criteria: the greatest need of rehab, the project-based rent assistance, and the rehab only. This rehab only section was something that we did present in our public hearing and received quite a bit of comments to. So we did try to reword this so it does help our developers a little bit better. It kind of gives them some preferences to applications that are not requesting acquisition credits or in a related party transaction, preference would be given to applications not requesting the credits or KHC gap funding. And we're trying to maximize our limited resources, and so that's why we have that in there. So our selection criteria for the new supply, we will be looking at the significant share of affordable units.
Just a second, but Terry,
Yes.
those are things you will consider, but since you don't score them, can we add the fourth one, which is what you ate for breakfast?
Yeah, so for existing supply, because we're not going to be allocating very many of our credits to rehab projects, this is how we're going to rank them. So this is how we will determine which ones get those credits. Because we're not going to actually be scoring on those. However, in the new supply, in our new construction, we are going to have a scoring criteria. And this is the items that we have chosen. So significant share of affordable units in a county is something that we have had several years now. It is for the balance of state only criteria for those projects. They account for the significant number of total available income restricted houses, rental housing. Policy Map was one of the new software platforms that we are using. In the past, we have used Opportunity 360, but that has since sunsetted, and so it's no longer available. So this was one of the challenges that we did have this year, is coming up with a program in which we can get the criteria for our scoring. So Policy Map is something that one of our staff members, Jake, has done an extremely dove right into it and has been learning it and is putting together some instructions for our developers to use. It is something that they can use, that they don't have to have a subscription for. And so these are the four things that we are going to be looking at. 3 of them will be applicable to the categories. So the renter cost burden. Yes, Kathy?
Well, I was just going to say, and you, because of the work that you've been doing, because of the disasters, you believe there are sufficient applicants out there for all this money to be spent? What do you do if you come to the fourth quarter and in either one of the categories, the money isn't spent?
That's not ever been a problem. I don't know that we will ever have that problem, that we have such a demand for our housing credits. It is typical that it's usually twice as the ask that we get on our applications is twice as much as what we actually have. So
that's why there's no contingency there. I'm good.
Yeah. So the renter cost burden is a measure of how we will how many rental households in a zip code tabulation spend 30% or more of their household income on rent and utilities. So that is their gross rent. We think this is an important metric for our purposes because it gives us a simple view into the local market of affordable units. Median household income. This data provides the local area median income for the proposed projects. And so the priority will be given to projects located in a census tract with a higher median incomes. The employment density, this is going to be for the balance of state only. It allows us to determine how many job opportunities may be available to proximity to the proposed project. And the road network density, again, for the urban areas only, just to kind of see how the intersections intertwine from intersection to intersection in those larger areas, to see what the development would be like. Our third scoring criteria will be
I just want to add that, but there's nothing in there when you decided on these criteria, nothing about segregation.
Well, actually, when you look at, so for renter cost burden, that could be both low income neighborhoods and high income neighborhoods because renters are often cost burdened across many income ranges. The median household income is aimed at desegregation. We're adding points for projects located in areas with higher median household income. So it is an aim to,
I didn't realize that median
Yeah.
household income, the tip is towards higher income. So you're not
Yes,
segregating by income.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't read that.
That's okay.
Into there. Okay.
And then our third scoring criteria will be permanent below market resources. A list is the eligible resources that we would be looking at. We'll also be looking at the terms of those below market resources that developers would bring to the project. Sam, if we'll go on to the next one, I know we're getting close to time. So land donation, this is something that we had quite a bit of comments on. Prior to our changing of this, we had a list of items that we would award points on. However, based on a lot of the comments that we received from our developers, we did kind of change this, that we would offer points or award points to budgets that show no more than 5,000 in the cost line items for land and buildings. And either a fee simple ownership or a 99-year lease would also qualify for those points. And then we have revitalization plans for the urban set aside. The points would be awarded to developments located in a QCT, and points would be awarded if the project is either a family, senior, or supportive housing project in one of those subsections. And we also will have tiebreakers for our new supply, and this is a list of those tiebreakers that we will have for those criteria. And then, Sam, the next slide is just kind of, there should be a scoring overview. Oh, maybe I didn't, I'm sorry. It might not be in the one that I submitted to Carrie. Yeah, my apologies. So we have a scoring overview that I will present to the board. It kind of breaks down the point values. So we'll have about a total of 95 points for the urban new supply and the balance estate new supply, and those points would be broken down. And then going forward, of course, we will have to present this to the board of directors. We'll send it over to the governor's office for approval. And once that's completed, then we can open up our application in May. Hopefully will be May. And then with those applications, we'll be closing in August. And then we would make those funding awards announcements in January of 2025.
I just want to underline that Terry, who has been she's been with KHC for a long time. She's been in her role since August. But been in multifamily for a long time and knows the programs and the developers very well. This is a very different QAP. It is much more streamlined. It's not trying to be real niche in terms of, getting really specific with stuff. We just need more supply all across the state. And we're trying to create incentives, particularly with the land donation and bringing in other sources to get more units out of our credits.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Wendy.
I don't believe any action can be taken since we don't have a quorum.
No, unfortunately. Just thought it would be good to still present to you all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think the next item would be item number 5, Gail. Oh, I think you're muted.
That's probably a good thing. Informational items, anybody?
I'm not aware of any from staff.
Pardon me?
I'm not aware of any from staff.
Any from the board that haven't been? Kathy, I thought you had something
Oh, I thought I was in number 6, items from the board or staff. Not
Right,
on the
you are.
agenda.
That's where I am.
Oh, okay. I thought you were on 5. I'm not saying that KHC has to take a stance, but I do think informing the committee and in a timely manner, because they're going to vote on it any second, about who is served by housing choice vouchers, that it is not covered by. I think that's a useful information, because I think people are going to be acting on it, and it would not be in KHC's interest to be silent on fair housing concerning the very people we serve. But I'm not asking to take a stance. I'm just saying we think you should have this information. We read about Louisville. We think you should have this information about the balance of state. And that is all I ask, just information to them.
Mhm. Maybe, Kathy, you and I could talk at the board meeting. I've got to go to a 3:00 meeting, but I'd like to understand how you think we could connect the dots for the legislators, because I don't think they'll do anything with it if we don't kind of help them understand what it means.
Okay. And maybe Sam, but the 29th may be too late, it may have passed by then, in which case,
Well, maybe you could at least send us your op-ed, so maybe that makes some of the case that you're.
Well, yeah, you don't want to read my op-ed. It's pretty mean, but I did send, a lot was in the email that I sent.
Okay.
But to structure it so that KHC is not taking a stance, that's all I ask. But that they understand who they are affecting.
Well, anyway, you're presuming
I'll
they
write an
care.
email on that. All right.
Okay.
I'll talk to you or write an email, whatever you want.
Okay, great.
Kathy, could you include the committee?
The whole committee. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Sure.
That would be good information for all of us.
Yes.
Do we have any other items from the board or the staff? Anything else? Well, let's have a motion to adjourn, if nobody has anything. Call for the motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved, Ms. Chad.
Okay. Second,
Kathy. Yeah, I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll see you all on the 29th.
Bye, everybody.